Let's catch up with the Shadow Attorney-General Andrew Wallace, who joins us from the Sunshine Coast. Good to talk to you, Andrew. First up, what are your thoughts on whether it should be against the law to burn the Australian flag? Could that create more strife than it resolves?
Well, Chris, the Labor Party had an opportunity to vote with the opposition just last week when Phil Thompson tried to introduce an amendment to the bill that we were debating, and the Labor Party voted it down. We were all ready to go. We think that 103,000 Australians have died with that flag on their left shoulder, and we think that it deserves a great amount of respect. And to see all manner of people disrespecting the flag is an absolute disgrace, and there should be consequences. I actually looked into some of the penalties around the world for desecrating other countries' flags, and it's anywhere between no penalty and 12 years imprisonment. So the penalty that we put in Phil Thompson's amendment was 2 years, which is consistent with a number of other countries. But there needs to be consequences for these people who are willing to desecrate our national flag.
So it sounds like the coalition will press ahead with that. I know you obviously, as we showed at the top of the program, the Premier there in Queensland is keen for that to happen and says his police force would be happy to enforce it. I want to bring you to another story in the wake of Bondi, a story broken on Sky News this afternoon by Andrew Clennell. And it relates to a victim of the Bondi terror attack, Rosalia Shikhverg. And she was treated in a Western Sydney hospital, in the Liverpool hospital. They changed her name on her records and on her medication and all the rest of it to an Anglo name, Karen Jones. They changed her name to without her permission. Now, she worries that this was to protect her from staff at the hospital. We remember that horrible case still before the courts where some nurses were wishing death upon Jewish patients. Here's what the New South Wales Health Minister, Ryan Park, has had to say.
The reason why is because we were obviously at that time dealing with a heightened security threat in and around Sydney, and there was a decision made at a local level that we would try and do that in order to protect her. It wasn't, I want to be clear about this, it wasn't about protecting her from staff or staff from different ethnic backgrounds. That's not the case. This was a decision made locally. Could it have been handled better through better discussion and dialogue with Rosalia and Greg? Of course it could have.
Yeah, Rosalia Shikhverg became Karen Jones. Do you buy the minister's argument here, or do we need to know more about this?
Well, look, I certainly think there needs to be further investigations as to why this happened in the first instance, why they simply, New South Wales Health, made this decision on its own bat without even consulting the patient in the first instance. You know, a simple question, look, given the security circumstances, given that what's happened in Bondi, would you like to go under an alias? It would seem to me to be a perfect question to ask, but unfortunately it wasn't. And I saw the piece from Andrew Clennell, and clearly Rosalie is very upset, and I think she's got good reason to be upset.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing to happen, especially without your consent. We'll see what the follow-up is there. I want to get back to federal politics and the Liberal leadership. Do you support Sussan Ley staying in the job?
You betcha I do, Chris. I think Sussan Ley has done an absolutely outstanding job. It's the most difficult job in Australian politics, particularly at the moment. And what I think is lost on a lot of people is that the last news poll identified that Sussan is the preferred Prime Minister in Victoria and Queensland, and amongst women, she's the preferred Prime Minister across the country.
Let me just jump in there because a lot of people have led the opposition in the past, but none of them have delivered a lower primary vote in the opinion polls. Surely that's an indictment on her?
Well, it's been a very difficult time for everybody. I think that there is obviously there is a movement, there's an anger towards Anthony Albanese and everything that he's done, whether it be his response to Bondi or his mismanagement of the economy. And I think that there's actually a lurch in Australia to the right. Look, there's a lot of heat and colour and movement about One Nation at the moment, but ultimately people know that One Nation is a protest party. They are not a party of government, never have been, never will be. Well, they only hold one seat in the House of Representatives, and that's because Barnaby defected from the Nationals.
Yeah, but if there's a lurch to the right, then you'd think the coalition parties, the Liberal and the Nationals, would be able to actually grab some of that lurch. But it is all going to One Nation. Look, before we get back to Parliament, before there can be a spill, none has been declared yet. Sussan Ley probably needs to announce her new shadow cabinet, filling up those spaces from the three Nationals whose resignations she accepted. Should she bring Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price and Andrew Hastie back onto back into the shadow cabinet?
Well, ultimately, that's a matter for Sussan.
Yes, but do you think she should?
My views about. Well, look, Chris, I'm not going to give you, a blow-by-blow description of the conversations I've had with Sussan. I've offered my gratuitous, unsolicited advice to Sussan on that. It's not just three members, but Chris, I think ultimately Sussan's in a difficult spot here because once you go past that lexicon, once you pass that point of appointing a fully Liberal frontbench. Once you've done that, it's very hard to take those positions off some of those people and return them to the Nats. And that's what I think Sussan's really grappling with at the moment, because we all want to get the Libs and the Nats back together in a coalition, or at least on my side we do. We're stronger together. We're better together. The country needs an effective opposition, and that is best done through a Liberal National coalition.
And as you rightly point out, it wasn't just those three who resigned. Of course, those three resignations she accepted triggered the walkout of all the Nats. So there's a stack of frontbench positions up for grabs. You'd think she'd have to bring in Andrew Hastie and Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, but that would create all sorts of trauma as well. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. I appreciate it. Andrew Wallace, the Shadow Attorney-General in the Federal Liberal Party. Much to unfold in coming days.
Authorised by Andrew Wallace, LNP, Boccarina, Queensland.